Happy Halloween, everyone. It's that time of year when we can distract ourselves from the horrors of reality with the horrors of fiction. For this Halloween, I had every intention of talking about the Terrifier films, but I was terrified to learn that the fourth and final movie is coming out next year, meaning I wanted to completely change my plans. I'll postpone that video and talk about something else this year. So looking into other popular horror movies and franchises, I decided I would go to the one place that could reliably clue me in on what's hot and trending: Fortnite. You see, every year Fortnite has a Halloween celebration called Fortnitemares, where everything becomes horror themed and we get a bunch of crossover characters and whatnot, because Fortnite will cross over with literally everything ever created. Now, while I did see Art the Clown from the Terrifier movies in Fortnite, among other horror icons like Ghostface and Jigsaw, there was one character who caught my attention for all the wrong reasons: the Grabber. Who is the Grabber? Like, I had never heard of this guy before. At least I thought, until I learned that that's the name of the guy from the Black Phone movies. So my interest peaked. I did some preliminary research into the character and films, and I have come to the conclusion that the Grabber has to be the biggest industry plant I've ever seen from the horror genre. If you don't know what the Black Phone is, I don't really blame you. There are so many horror films being released every year now that it's easy to get lost in the sauce, and personally, I haven't heard many people talk about or acknowledge these films. But essentially, the premise of The Black Phone is the Grabber, who is a masked serial killer. He grabs people, he kidnaps kids off the street and locks them in his basement, where they are given a set of very strict rules, and if they break these extreme rules, they're deemed naughty, and he has to punish them. And that's where our protagonist comes in, Finney, who is kidnapped by the Grabber. He's grabbed by the Grabber, taken to the basement where he keeps the kids. Well, just one kid at a time, I guess. But that's where the Black Phone comes in. The eponymous Black Phone, where Finney receives calls from the Grabber's previous victims. Their ghosts are there to help him survive. And he does. He does survive. This little kid, Finney, straight up kills the Grabber at the end. And that continues into the second film, the sequel, a couple years later. The Grabber is back from hell, and he gets killed again by the same kid. But I'm not really here to talk about the movies themselves. I just have to talk about how silly this villain is for someone who seems to be pushed so hard by the studio behind these films. First of all, we gotta talk about that name, the Grabber. Oh no, don't grab me. Is that really the best they could do with this character? He's gonna grab you? Now look, I ragged on the Halloween movie franchise before. I had a lot of criticisms for it. People were not happy about that. But I do think I owe those movies an apology because of Michael Myers. There is something so simple yet striking about Michael Myers' design. His name, The Shape, might also be a little silly, but it does ominously capture the way he stands perfectly still in silhouette throughout many of the series scenes, and that helps him be a pretty effective horror icon, especially with, how he's actually stabbing people with a knife in the 300 movies they made about him, which I have to say, that is so much more threatening than someone like the Grabber, who kidnaps and then is subsequently outsmarted and murdered by a child twice. Now, I could forgive something like that in the Harry Potter franchise with Voldemort, considering that's all like young adult fantasy stuff, but this is supposed to be a horror movie. You're supposed to feel tension and fright and scares and severe consequences, but the Grabber is killed by a child twice, even when he gets turned into a crazy ghost guy. He does have a somewhat identifiable design, just mostly plain clothes with a mask, I guess, and I will say Ethan Hawke does a good job portraying that character, but I just don't feel like he's that threatening. He has that stature of a horror icon with a name that is so silly, with being killed by the same kid twice, and by the way, not even killing anybody in the second movie. Okay, so I've been making fun of this character quite a bit, but in all seriousness, if they actually want to make someone like the Grabber a horror icon, maybe just give it some time and let it happen naturally. It feels like there's such a push to try and make this guy the next big thing that it takes away from me being able to enjoy it for what it is. I think it also speaks to how we are culturally with art nowadays, where it doesn't seem like anything's really sticking as much as it used to, and we're all so reliant on nostalgia and things from the past that we try so hard to make things stick now, like the Grabber. I just think the Grabber is such a goofy character for someone being pushed so hard as like the next big horror icon. But that's just my thoughts. I'm just making fun of this character. Don't take it too seriously. If you like the Grabber, let me know why he stands out to you. I would love to know why on this horrifying holiday that is Halloween. why this horror icon stands out to you, if that's what you think. If not, let me know what your favorite horror icon is, what your least favorite horror icon is. I'd love to know either way. I hope you all have a good Halloween, and be careful, because you never know when someone might grab you. Just such a dumb name, the Grabber. It's so silly. At least they didn't name him like the Toucher or something like that. That would have been gross. They could have even called him Young Stroker the Body Snatcher. Now that would have been something. Grabber, what a dumb name.